When it comes to the majority of Japanese RPGs, they tend to have a couple of things in common. There are usually plenty of eye-catching scenes for people to drool over. And I mean, I can see why stuff like this is very important for the story. And besides that, there are always items or pieces of equipment that are notoriously difficult to find. It might be because they have a very low chance of showing up in some way, or because they are tied to a very annoying or difficult minigame or side quest. Either way, they are designed to test your patience and, at times, your mental fortitude. Well, Digimon World 1 has all of that. There is plenty of eye candy for you to fantasize about. And there are plenty of items which can be really annoying to get. Some of them are such a pain to actually find. I am pretty sure most people who have played this game have never acquired them legitimately. Now you may be wondering, are any of these ultra rare items worth the effort required to get them? Are they game breaking in some way? Will they finally help me find the happiness that I've been searching for my whole life? That is the best part, because no, most of them are not worth the hassle at all. But still, today I'm gonna show you how and where to find them. Well, most of them anyway. You'll see what I mean later. So join me as we go on the hunt for the rarest, the most difficult to find items in Digimon World 1. First up, we're gonna divide the items into 3 categories. The ones that can be found randomly lying around in the world. The ones that can be acquired by beating up certain enemies over and over again. And finally, ones that can only be gotten through special methods. There can be some overlap between the first 2 categories, and I'll let you know when that happens. For the items that spawn randomly, the RNG is set when you enter the screen the item is supposed to be in. So it is possible to go back and forth between that screen and a different one to keep resetting the RNG until your desired item shows up. For battles though, things are a little more finicky. If you want to use save states, you can manipulate the RNG in the middle of a battle, like by throwing items at your Digimon. But I think it's just easier to start another fight than to do that. Well then, let's begin by talking about some mushrooms. The basic mushrooms are pretty much the most vital source of food outside of the daily meat from the meat farm, at least early in the game. Every person who has played Digimon World 1 knows about them. But they aren't the only mushrooms around. There are a couple of others that you can find, although they are far more rare compared to the normal ones. The happy mushroom is the next most common type, and it can spawn in a variety of places. The easiest place to find it would be around here in Native Forest. You can go here right at the beginning of the game and there aren't any enemies around. The chance to find it here isn't as high as some of the other places, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Still, I had to spend a considerable amount of time looking for it, but that was just me getting unlucky, like usual. So what does it actually do? It fills your Digimon up pretty much the same amount as a regular mushroom, but it has the added effect, as the name implies, of making your Digimon happier. But this thing probably isn't very clean or good for your Digimon for that matter, because there is a pretty good possibility that it will make your Digimon sick. I think we can all agree that it's not worth it. Next up is Ice Mushroom. This one is, as you would assume by the name, native to the Friesland areas. Definitely harder to come by compared to the Happy Mushroom, but still pretty doable. This one showed up pretty easily for me. Sometimes RNG giveth, while often it taketh away. As for the effect, it gives your Digimon a massive boost in discipline. Like, that is nothing to scoff at. I am not entirely sure why that happens, but it's a very good item to have around, if your Digimon aren't behaving right. And it's more filling than a regular mushroom, so that's another benefit too. I guess we can say that this item is very cool. Next, we are gonna take a look at the best mushroom out there. A real delicacy, but it is pretty hard to find. I spent a while looking for this one. The normal mushrooms showed up all the time, but the fancy one eluded me for a good long while. At one point, I decided to look for it in one of the other potential spawn locations. Apparently, it can show up right behind the toilet in Native Forest, which is kind of gross. But I didn't have any luck with that spot, so I moved back to the original one, around the Etimon treehouse. Eventually, it showed up near the bridge. So what does the Deluxe Mushroom do? Oh boy, what doesn't it do? Let's take a look at the stats of this Numemon. They're pretty sad, no doubt. But it's an era of peace right now, so Pooh Jr. here doesn't have to go to the gym. Anyway, the primary effect of the Deluxe Mushroom is that it raises stats. Not just one, but all of them. It adds a flat 100 to both HP and MP and 10 to each other stat. Not only that, but it's very filling too. Better than any meat in fact. And it has no downsides whatsoever. It's the best mushroom you can find, that's for sure. Although finding it is not gonna be easy. Now it's time to take a look at some berries. First up, we have the big berry. While the mushrooms had a varying probability of showing up depending on the location, this one has a flat 4% chance of spawning, no matter where you look. Thankfully, I found one pretty quickly. As for the full effect, it makes the Digimon completely full no matter how hungry they are. In addition, it will increase the weight by a whopping 10 points. That is one hefty berry. After that is the red berry. This took a freaking long time for me to actually find. It's not supposed to be that rare, but still 4% at best isn't the greatest shot in the world. On a side note, there's a vending machine here that can give out some random items. One of those random items appears to be steak. That's a pretty good item for 200 bits, right? Well, no, because it's apparently moldy meat and not steak. Bamboozled by Digimon World 1 again. Anyway, I think it took multiple in-game days in the Glacial Zone, where time passes slowly by the way. So yeah, it took a while. But eventually, we found the darn thing. I was beginning to wonder if it was gonna show up at all. It's a pretty useful item though. The red berry gives a boost to discipline, happiness, and lowers tiredness by a good chunk. Not to mention, it is about as filling as giant meat is. Not too shabby. That tiredness reduction can really help with the training at the gym. The last berry is gonna be our first ultra rare item, because the calm berry has a whopping 1% chance of spawning. And it only does so in one location in the entire game. In the misty trees, on the screen where you can find the really creepy looking Cherrymon, there is a chance for the calm berry to randomly spawn. This took me forever to find, and all I could do was go back and forth between screens to see if it shows up. Now, here's the thing about all these rare spawning items. When it came to most of them, I wasn't absolutely certain where exactly on screen the item was supposed to be when it did spawn, which is why I tend to look around for the items that I am not completely certain about. But these ultra rare items are a pain to find. I don't even know how many in-game days it actually took. I think 6 or 7 days, maybe more. I lost track. But finally, the weird grey ball-looking berry appears. So what does this ultra rare item do? It's actually another kind of stat increasing item. This one increases MP by 200. It doesn't look that incredible, considering the Deluxe Mushroom probably gives you a bigger bang for your buck and is easier to find. But unlike the Deluxe Mushroom, there is another way for you to find the calm berry. You can find blue Miramon in the Ice Sanctuary. These blue Miramon may not look very special, or tough, or smart, but they are capable of dropping the calm berry after you beat them. Now, I said capable, but the chances of you getting the calm berry here instead of the Misty Forest aren't any better. Because the blue Miramon has a 1% chance of dropping the calm berry. So it took me a long time to get it to happen. I had to beat up a lot of blue Miramon here, and I wasn't getting anything out of that. So I headed upstairs, as there is a room in the Ice Sanctuary where you can find 2 blue Miramon, which I assume doubles your chances of finding the calm berry, assuming that's how the game determines drop rates when it comes to multiple enemies. Still, if you plan on doing this for some reason, expect to hang around for a while. I think I was easily in the high double digits when it came to how many blue Miramon I had to beat the snot out of. But I was persistent, and one of the beaten blue Miramon finally coughed up the calm berry. Was 200 MP worth all this? You can be the judge. But no. Now then, let's get to the other weird fruits and veggies that you can find out there. Next up is the blue apple. There are a couple of places where you can find this one, and they're all pretty close to the beginning of the game. For the effect, the blue apple raises happiness significantly. In addition, it is about as filling as the sirloin, although the latter reduces tiredness a bit, which is not the case for the blue apple as far as I can tell. But if you need to make your Digimon happy in a pinch, then the blue apple will do the trick. The next fruit on the list is the orange banana, or the orange bana if you want to go by the in-game description. You might remember this one from the Numemon and Friends playthrough, where I was bamboozled by it. We'll get to that in a moment. For the majority of the game, this spot in Tropical Forest is the only place where you can find the orange banana. Although if you haven't recruited Santarumon yet, there is a chance for the banana to spawn in the Amida Forest. But I am pretty sure that that stops being the case once Santarumon has been recruited. As for what it does, that's actually pretty interesting, because the description says that it fully heals your HP and MP. But as it often does, this game is straight up lying to you, because the orange banana does not do that. It appears that it heals your Digimon for 1000 HP and MP, and it's as filling as a giant meat. That's about it. Oh, and you can't use this in battle, so there's that. Not a very useful item, I'd say. Moving on, the Spiny Green can only be found in this particular location and nowhere else in the game. It is never even dropped by an enemy or anything like that. You'd think that would mean that this item was really special. But it's alright, I guess. As for the effect, it reduces tiredness substantially. There's only one other item in the whole game that takes away as much tiredness, but we'll get to that one later. If you want to train your Digimon 24/7 without any rest like some kind of evil villain, then the Spiny Green will come in handy. Speaking of training, let's talk about the Digipine. This is another item that can be found in the Misty Trees, in the same screen as the Creepy Cherrymon. The probability isn't too bad either, for what I think is a pretty cool item. The Digipine gives a boost to stat gains we get from training. We already know of two items which improve training gains, namely the Super Carrot and the Hawk Radish, that we can get from the Veggimon. So is the Digipine any different from them? For once, a rare item is actually worth it, because yes it is. In a very good way. Here we have Pooh Jr. Let's see how well he does without any training enhancing food. Alright, that's not too bad. Next, let's give him one of the items that we can get from Veggimon. They affect different stats, but the overall impact on stat gains is the same. Okay then, we can see the boost in effect here, with the higher gain in HP. Now then, let's try the Digipine, and see if there's a difference. Whoa! Now that is a big boost. Even an increase in attack. That's what I'm talking about. And unlike the training food from Veggimon, the Digipine works on all training stations. I think this is my favorite item so far, and it's not even stupidly rare or something. Well, that was a pretty awesome item, so let's take a look at a pretty mediocre one next. The prickly pear can be found in a number of places around the Great Canyon area. I think I just randomly came across it while I was wandering around. It's not that noteworthy though. All it does is reduce weight by 5 and fills up your Digimon somewhat. Not a very exciting item, I'd say. I miss the Digipine already. After that, we have a couple of very effective recovery items. For the first one, we're gonna have to go to the Overdell Cemetery. And there is a 5% chance that a Super Veggie may spawn here. This is the only place in the game where we can find one. I didn't have to wait around too long for this one to show up, thankfully. As for the effect, it's pretty simple. It recovers MP completely. You heard me right, 100% MP recovery. And unlike the lying orange banana, this one does work. Oh, and it does get rid of hunger as much as a giant meat. The next item on the list is actually quite similar to the Super Veggie. The sweet nut can be found in a number of places around the Gear Savannah. The effect is pretty much the same as the Super Veggy, except it's for HP, so 100% HP recovery. These two items pretty much go together. But although they are recovery items, neither can be used in battle, like the orange banana. How tragic. For the next one, we are gonna head to Beetle Land. This is the only location where one can find a gold acorn. This one took a few days for me to find. Well, the gold acorn's description says that it can be sold for a high price. To be precise, it can be sold for 4,000 bits. That's alright, I suppose. I think we're all pretty spoiled by the Mojiamon trading nonsense for stuff like this to impress us anymore. You could feed it to your Digimon and it is quite filling, but it does not have other effects if used that way. Now, it's time to take a look at a bunch of ultra rare items which are from the same family as the calm berry we looked into earlier. The muscle yam can only be found on this screen in the Gecko Swamp. That 1% probability of showing up means you could be stuck here for days waiting for that yam to appear. That's what happened to me. When it comes to finding them, the ultra rare items are no joke. Well, the heart-shaped yam finally showed up after about 5 or 6 days, I think. While the calm berry increased MP by 200, the muscle yam increases HP by 200. But if you're not interested in moving back and forth between screens to find this item, maybe you'd have a more enjoyable time trying to beat it out of Morishellmon, which can be found around the misty trees. This particular screen has 2 of them, and no other enemies, so that's nice. Although with a 1% drop rate, you'll need plenty of patience. The Power Ice is up next, which may make you think that you'd have to go to Freezeland to find it, but no, it's in Gear Savannah. Why? Who knows? This one raises defense by 20. If you are underwhelmed by it, I get it. Me too. The Power Ice can be dropped by the Rockmon. You know, the Digimon who try to ambush you as soon as you get into Mount Infinity. If these are a bit too strong for you, I think they also spawn in the Grey Lord Mansion. And they are much weaker over there, but still have a 1% chance of dropping the Power Ice. And then we have the Sage Fruit, which does spawn in 2 places. But I don't feel too good about waiting around in the Speedy region. With such a low spawn rate, there's a chance your Digimon might not live long enough to find it. So the Freezeland is my preferred location for this item. It's interesting. This might be the first time I've come to this screen with no intention of trading with the Mojiamon. Well, anyway, the Sage Fruit increases brain by 20. Yay! If you want to beat it out of wild enemies instead, you'll have to go back to Mount Infinity. The Pidomon here have a whopping 10% chance of dropping the Sage Fruit. That makes me wonder though. Maybe all these items were meant to be 10% drops from their respective wild Digimon. Or did they make a mistake with Pidomon? With Digimon World 1, you can never really tell. At least I don't feel like any of these items deserve to be 1% drops. Anyway, the last 2 items in this category do not spawn anywhere, and can only be acquired through wild enemy drops. For the Power Fruit, you'll have to farm Vermilimon. And there's a group of 3 of them on the first floor of Mount Infinity. If you have an endgame Digimon, you should be able to take them down relatively quickly, with some wide area attacks. Vermilimon spawn in the ancient Dino region as well, where they are a lot weaker, in case you wanna go there to fight them. The Power Fruit, as the name implies, increases offense by 20. Very thrilling, indeed. And for the last of these somewhat disappointing items, we'll need to head over to the Freezeland and try to take it from the Ice Devimon. They only appear to spawn during nighttime, so you may want to keep that in mind. Eventually, they'll part with the Speed Leaf. No points for guessing what this one does, though. Alright, that leaves one last item in this category that I want to talk about. This one was actually a bit of a mystery for the longest time. If you've played Digimon World 1 enough, then you must be aware of the Chain Melon. It is pretty much the best item in the game. The in-game description says that it's good for many things. That's pretty cryptic and vague, but I suppose they gave up on trying to fit all the needed info in the text box. The main effect of the Chain Melon isn't one you can see right away. It increases the lifespan of the Digimon you feed it to by 20 hours. Really, that can be a big deal when you have a powerful ultimate Digimon hanging around. But that's not all it does. It also reduces tiredness substantially. Just as much as the Spiny Green we talked about earlier, in fact. The Chain Melon is the item I alluded to before. In addition to that, it also gives a big chunk of happiness and fills your Digimon up too. It's got a lot of good things going for it. The only possible negative is that there's a small chance that it may make your Digimon sick. But personally, I'd be willing to take that risk. With the lifespan increase, you can pretty much keep a Digimon going perpetually if you wanted to. With enough Chain Melons, that is. Take a look at this old Greymon, for example. He is a very old boy. Normally, you are supposed to get a Chain Melon from Digimon as a reward for clearing the back dimension, which shows up after every couple of weeks. For the longest time, that was the only legitimate way of getting one. But many years after the release of the game, another way was found. In Gear Savannah, on this particular screen, there is a 1% chance for a Chain Melon to spawn. It truly is the strangest thing for me. This item, for which you're supposed to jump through hoops for, can just be found lying around with the same chance of showing up as a Power Fruit or Calm Berry. That doesn't feel right. Well, anyway, you can farm one of these per day, which is not bad, I would say. Now, we may be done with rare item spawns and drops, but we haven't seen the items which are, in my opinion, the rarest in the game. It's time to hunt for some treasure. For this, you need to recruit the Dreamujimon from Drill Tunnel. Once that's done, now you can send him out to look for treasure, for a price, that is. You could get the 3-day package or the 10-day special one. The 10-day package can offer more valuable prizes in return, such as the stat chips. But we don't really care about the chips. All we really care about are the rarest items. For the treasure hunt, there are 3 evolution items that can be acquired through both the 3-day and 10-day packages. The Toantatter, which can get us a Bakemon, the Flaming Wing, which can be used to get a Birdramon, and the Koga Claws, the Digivolution item for Ninjamon. None of these are particularly amazing, I'm sure you would agree, but that's not the point, I think. Initially, all 3 of them have a 2% chance of being found by Dreamujimon, but there is a way to improve those odds. A Gabumon can be recruited near the Gecko Swamp. Once he joins the city, he will end up helping out with the treasure hunt. With Gabumon around, the probability of finding rare items goes up, including the chances to get the evolution items. If you go with the 3-day package, however, the Koga Claws will still only have a 2% chance of being found. That goes up to 4% with the special 10-day package though. So what does this all mean? You may be wondering, hey, we were looking for items that had a 1% spawn rate. How are these items more rare? Well, you do have a point. But see, with the items we were looking for before, we could brute force our way to them. Keep entering and re-entering the areas to try and get them to spawn, or to keep annihilating the enemies who might have the items on their person. But for this one, all we can do is wait. Wait for multiple in-game days to get a chance for the item to show up. Initially, I thought that a 10-day special package was the best way to go. But I quickly realized that that wasn't a good idea. The 3-day package offers the rarest items too. The extra 2% shot on the Koga Claws just isn't worth waiting an extra 7 days for. Because even then, the RNG might not go in our favor. Speaking of RNG, you may be thinking, well hey editor man, why don't you just make a save state before picking up the item and keep reloading until you get the item you want? Yes. To be honest, I did think about that. But there is a problem. You see, the game determines what item we will get when Dreamujimon initially heads out and not when he comes back. So the RNG is set at the beginning of the waiting period, not at the end. So what it comes down to is waiting. Waiting for days to go by so I can check what item I got. I am not joking when I say that this can, literally, take in-game years worth of waiting. Sure, initially, one could pass the time by just playing the game, recruiting new Digimon or training a new one. Personally, I spent a lot of time looking for the ultra rare items out there, which did take a while. But eventually, one can run out of things to do, in which case, it comes back to waiting again. Days and weeks slowly drift away as I pray for Digimon to find what I am looking for, instead of another restore. I just had the game running while I worked on other stuff, but I can't leave it running without supervision though. If I don't let the Digimon sleep when it wants to, it may end up sick, which can be a problem, as the sickness pop-up may stop time from progressing. I don't even know how many generations of Digimon came and went as I waited. I kept getting stuff like Omnipotent, Restores, and the Special Defense Disc or Offense Disc. I wanted to get at least one of the evolution items, and I wasn't leaving until that happened. And after what seemed like forever, we finally got the RNG to roll in our favor, as we got the Flaming Wing. It was such a relief, I gotta say. Because I finally got a little luck, I decided to keep going and try to find the other two items as well. But wouldn't you know it, after a while, I ended up getting the Flaming Wing again. Now that is just cruel, no? That's what makes getting all of these items kinda insane to me. The stuff we were chasing before seems like a cakewalk now, compared to this chicanery. Even if we do get the rare RNG roll, we needed to roll for the right item too. But I kept trudging along, and finally, it seemed like the randomness had decided to go in my favor once more, as I, shockingly, landed the Koga Claws. That really had me hyped, cause that was the rarest item we could get here, at least from the 3-day package. If nothing else, I did get the rarest item here. But the last one, it continued to elude me, no matter how many times I sent that Digimon to try and find it. And really, when I got yet another Flaming Wing after a long while of waiting, I decided to be content with what I had here. Chasing that last one, I had no idea how long that could take. It's really not in my hands, and each roll of the dice takes a good chunk of time. Now then, keeping everything we've seen so far in mind, would you believe that there is another set of items which are even harder to get? Because now, we won't be wandering around to find rare items, or beating up helpless wild enemies to do it. And we can't just wait it out either. This time, we need actual skill to get the rare items. During the course of the game, you can find a Penguinmon in Friesland. If you beat it in a game of curling, it will join the city and open up a curling game station there. You can challenge Penguinmon to a game of curling by offering a fish, and if you win, you get an item for your trouble. The game itself is simple and fun if you're into this sort of thing. It isn't super easy to win though. You need to get acquainted with the different types of stones, as they can behave differently depending on the power you apply to each one. The smaller ones are faster, for example. Ideally, you want to land into the 2-point areas, but your opponent can knock your stones out of there. But to be fair, you can do the same. So there is an element of strategy involved. You absolutely want to avoid the negative points area, and you want to try to push your opponents there when you can. The stones you and your opponent get can be random to a degree. The ones that lock into the ground can be really annoying to deal with if Penguinmon gets them. If you have them yourself, you can get the AI to make some really stupid moves, as the AI tends to ram into them for no reason every now and then. It's a pretty basic game, but it does require skill to win consistently. Now, there are a number of items that Penguinmon can give you as rewards for beating him. The rarest one, by far, is the Rooster, which is the Digivolution item for the weird, scary chicken Digimon. Without getting skilled at curling, you aren't gonna get your hands on that Rooster. And even then, you're gonna have to potentially play this game a lot. I played this minigame so much, I can't even tell you how many times I played it. For hours and hours, easily. To be honest, I'm no good when it comes to games like this, but I had to get pretty good at it. But every victory would lead to me getting something mundane, like a large recovery or medium MP disc. So once again, you may be thinking, well duh, editor man, use save states to get what you want. Aha, yes, very good idea. But you see, for some reason, the game doesn't want to let us do that. Just like how it was for the treasure hunt, the RNG for the item is determined before the game even begins. So I had to do it the old-fashioned way. Keep beating the penguin at his own game, as it then gets the last laugh by handing over some piece of trash at the end. It was tedious. I played against the Penguinmon for an absurd amount of time, but I wanted that rooster, even though I really disliked the Digimon that comes out of it. Most importantly, I suppose, I didn't want to disappoint you all by not getting it. So after another game in which I kicked the Penguinmons behind, I was about to get up to grab some food, but I realized I had to get rid of an item before I could get the new one. And then... oh my god. I didn't think I'd ever feel so overjoyed after reading the word rooster. But we did it, everyone. We got the rarest item from Penguinmon. Does it mean we can all go home now? Well, we aren't done yet. This minigame is hiding a few more items for those who truly want to see everything. In Factorial Town, you may rarely come across a Metal Mamemon, just hanging out. Although the game thinks it's Metal Greymon. Does Digimon World 1 think all Metal Digimon are the same or something? That's not right. Anyway, you need to beat the stuffing out of this guy. He's pretty tough, so you'll want to bring a capable ultimate level Digimon if you can. Afterwards, he will join the city. So what does he do exactly? Sometimes, when you go to visit Penguinmon at the curling station, you will find Metal Mamemon instead, still wearing the wrong name tag. You can challenge him to a game of curling, the same way you could with Penguinmon. Metal Mamemon can be a tougher opponent than the penguin, as he will aggressively try to knock your stuff out of the way with great accuracy. But if you do manage to beat him, he'll also give you a reward. Within the list of items which he can offer as rewards, we can find, as far as I am concerned, the rarest items in the game. All 4 of the Digivolution items we can get here have a 2% chance of showing up every time you beat Metal Mamemon. Oh boy, doesn't that sound fun? And if you thought beating Penguinmon consistently was tough, well, the challenge ain't getting any easier here. But instead of there being one item you need to get lucky for, like in the case of the rooster, there are 4 of them here. You could be curling for a very, very long time before you even see one of them. So you better love the game from the bottom of your heart if you want to stand any chance at not getting bored out of your mind after a while. Even if you get really good at the game, sometimes you will lose anyway, which would mean even more time wasted. This minigame could break you if you become obsessed with those rare items. How do I know? Because that's what happened to me. I really wanted to show them to you all. I had gone so far, I really didn't want to give up on the hunt without anything to show for it. I kept getting meat or restores or other useless trash, but none of the rare stuff. And this went on for a very long while. The games of curling kind of melded together. But eventually, after I don't even know how long, Metal Mamemon decided to part with one of the 4 Digivolution items. Interestingly, it was his own Digivolution item too. I wonder if that meant we had his respect. But that isn't enough, right? There are more of them. I had no choice but to keep going and going. After a couple of dozen more victories, it appeared that Metal Mamemon wanted to troll me because he gave me another metal armor. The same item as before. Maybe he really wanted a friend or a mate. That would be disturbing. But that can't be it, right? It must have been a sad coincidence that I got the same item. Well, after another 20 or 30 wins, when the RNG rolled in our favor once more, we got... Yep, that's it. That was the point when I decided to call it a day. I could beat this tiny metal dude another 1,000 times and still not get the other 3 items. I tried my best, but this is as far as I can go, at least for now. Maybe one day I'll go back and try again, but for the moment I'll try to be satisfied with all the other rare items we've been able to find. I do hope you enjoyed this weird journey today. If you did, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. As for the community challenge for this week, here are the people who were able to get it right. Nicely done, everyone! You are all way too clever, I have to say. And now, for a quick shout out to the people who keep this ship afloat. Many thanks for Chaos Untold, Vanilla, and our newest member, Maxer5000. Thank you everyone for your support. And here's a big shout out for McTivel for subscribing to the Friend of the Crystals tier. Did I pronounce that name right, or is it McTivle? Either way, thank you, my friend. And finally, this absolute Chad alpha male has subscribed to the Savior of the Crystals tier. Thank you, Stephen Ford. Your support is highly appreciated. You are truly a Chad among men. And that's all I have for you today. Halloween is coming up pretty soon, so I think I'll be working on something for that next. Until then, if there's anything we've learned today, it's this. Not everything that glitters is gold. Sometimes, it's just chicken-shaped garbage. And I think I'm gonna have to get an old friend of mine to teach those chickens a lesson.